Yes, who am I sounds a bit like existential question, like, and also some, in a way, identitary question, which of course I, as any other individual, have considered a lot. So in terms of to which collectivities I could say I belong, or so on. And at the same time, I'm always trying to somehow surpass all of these categories and somehow to think of myself in more fluid and freer terms. Um, the thing that you would normally put in a CV is that I was born in Banja Luka. At the time, Banja Luka was part of the Yugoslavia still, and Yugoslavia was just about to fall apart some 3 years after I was born. And now Banja Luka is in Bosnia, and I actually live in Belgrade, where I'm also from, where I'm also now speaking. And at the same time, I kind of lived and worked in Germany a lot, and I also work across several European countries, and most recently even US and Canada, but mostly online due to the pandemics. It's always a complicated question, who am I? And how I became a playwright, I guess it was really a process of becoming, and it's still a process of becoming. And I hope it really will not end. I mean, it will kind of continue in a way of shaping my own interests and ideas and kind of constantly questioning them and changing them and so on. I mean, I studied scenic writing, so this was in a way a decision that I made as a young person. Yes, making very important decision at 19, as everyone else is faced with like choice of study groups and so on. Maybe had I had the opportunity to study creative writing, not specifically theater writing or performance writing or film writing, I would have done that. These type of programs are not yet even eligible or available in Balkans. So in a way, I chose what was the closest to the creative work I imagined myself doing. And now I'm quite grateful for this choice that I made, because I feel that it's a much broader field than maybe literature or creative writing might have been. Probably, I mean, of course, either way it could have worked. Um, because I think I became, in a way, a writer through studying. But of course, as I said, even today, it's not finished. So it's a process. It's a lengthy process. And I think I also am becoming a playwright by reading other plays. I'm also becoming a playwright by constantly taking part in the field of performing arts or theater, constantly going to see the shows. Now, of course, this also changed with Corona, etc. But simply this interest, let's say, in text and the ways and modalities, frames in which it can be presented. I do not specifically write for theater, although I do predominantly write for theater, but I'm also really interested in all other text forms. So I've also written film. Recently, I've had a premiere of full-length film Celts that I co-wrote, and I also wrote more experimental forms, such as text for projects that get developed in visual arts contexts, that get presented in galleries, texts for musical pieces. So I recently also wrote libretto for the opera that was performed in Steirischer Herbst Graz just in the beginning of September 2021. And I also am very interested in theory and my texts, so in critical theory, in performing arts theory, in literary theory, theories and so on, in sense that that this also informs a lot my writing and somehow shapes it also. So I would say that I work in this very broad scope of text work, let's say. So I would maybe even say that I'm more text worker than a playwright. I mean, it's a, of course, invented term, but it's an interesting one because it brings to relation these two very important notions. One is text, another is work. So also in Marxist terms, it's important to understand how we produce, what are our modes of production, what are the circumstances of our individual and collective productivities and how do these products get presented, and who gets surplus value in the end of it all. Maybe it would be interesting to talk about my novel, which I'm kind of trying to write, but also not having so much time to dedicate myself completely to, because it is also a new form that I would like to explore. So also in, canonized male white literary field, novel is considered to be the proper form. And finally, once you are somehow accepted in a circle of certain writers and writing and language and of course in itself canon, only when you start producing novels, so writing poetry and writing prosa and writing shorter prosa and writing plays especially has been a bit contested from both sides, both the side of contemporary theater in terms with all performance studies and post-dramatic theater tendencies, and on the other hand, even in literary field, it's always also disregarded as a lower genre, so to say. Of course, I completely disagree with both stances. I'm very, very interested, as I say, in performing texts, in like texts that are written specifically for stage, that are written for actors, that are written for live bodies that should say them out loud. At the same time, I think this novel has this fun in itself that is like it is a novel about theater. So I thought that I would not be interested to develop a meta-theatrical play in sense that this is a play that takes part in a theater in institution, and that it also deals with the theater as a topic, but that it could actually be interesting and beneficial for both of these fields, and even of this tension that I just spoke about between two disciplines to actually write a novel about it. So this novel is actually based on my experience of working as an artistic director in National Theatre Belgrade in 2019, just before coronavirus pandemic outbreak for a year. And somehow it was a very extreme experience in many aspects. I was a young woman in this really highly positioned place. At the same time, you could say that I hold certain power to a certain degree, and at the same time I felt also very powerless for several reasons, because I was exposed, as always I am exposed, as I mentioned when I said that I'm interested in modes of production. Even in my individual work, when I sit in this room and when I produce a very poetic and hermetic text, I still need to be confronted with political realities, with societal realities of this production. And this, of course, is so much more truth in these systems such as immense cultural institutions, and especially institutions such as national theaters that serve the purpose of representing national state, values of national state, and also that I kind of created for bourgeois audiences, and also for kind of creating a certain image and certain national identity, and promoting actually the values, total values, and mirroring them of the society in which it finds itself. Its working title, it's called National Theatre, the novel. Okay. But I think it should have another title, which I think I would come to when I dedicate more time to it. Of course, I would like to complete the novel I was talking about, and I would like to see my most recent text, which is called Regime of Healing, produced in native language and also in translation. So this is the text that is a kind of continuation of my previous text, Regime of Love, and at the same time it is not its sequel at all, because it's dealing also with topic of public health. So in a sense, it was supposed to be some type of comedy on healing practices in Western world, on somehow discourses that run the bodies in a Western regime of medicine, and at the same time on this alleged freedom that exists in Eastern medicine, and somehow how do people decide who gets to cure their illnesses, and when and why, who has access to public health, how health systems are getting more and more privatized and inaccessible to certain populations, and this all was preoccupying me for a long time before pandemics. And then of course pandemic came, and it even turned topic and tables, let's say, once more. So this topic became even more urgent, let's say. So on one hand, we have all set of this, so to say, not yet disabled bodies, but somehow coming there, all of our bodies that are really like destroyed, and not only human bodies, it's also animal and plant organisms, which are getting really destroyed by ecosystems we created in Anthropocene. So the bad water, bad air, bad food, no matter what we do, we have a certain type of allergy or certain type of dysfunction in this system. And how is illness then regarded in capitalism in terms of how can this body still be functional for the capital or not? And then on the other hand, pandemic that covered all of this in a huge, like, augmented way and proportion, which is of course then even metaphorical way. It deals also, then the text deals with dystopian possibilities after corona and so on. So these are some of the plans that I think that this text is relevant, quite relevant right now, that it's a very, let's say, experimental text, because it really doesn't have any characters, and it doesn't have any plot apart from what I kind of described right now. But I still feel very strongly that it is a performance text, that it should be also done in theater by actors, with directors, etc. So these are some of the ways I'm thinking, or paths I want to go through in the near or maybe even distant future.